Okay, it's late enough. Try and wait for more people to come on, but gotta start because I gotta go to the next year. Um, okay, again we're learning Leila Nishmas, Yehuda Shimon, Zachar ben Yeshua Yosef Moshe, Mordechai Chana, Zachar ben Chaim Yitzchak Zev, and Ari Leib, Zachar ben Yeshua Adam Zalman, and a special mazel tov to Mr. Jacobs who arranged this year. I don't know if she's on the birth of a baby girl. She should only have nachas. Okay, so we left off. Truth is, I don't remember exactly where we left off, but I think there was some confusion last week, at least based on some text that I got afterwards about what somebody should do if they're not sure if they finished eating. Meaning, you're in the kitchen, and I mean that's usually the situation. You're in the kitchen and you're snacking on food or whatever it is, tasting foods that you're cooking, and then you haven't eaten for a while. And then you remember you didn't say a burn of fushas. So the question was, how much time do you have? How much time do you have to say a burn of fushas or ala michya? So we said there was different shiurim. Bread, if you weren't sure how long did you bench, which is a very common shaila. I don't know why people seem to forget to bench, but it's fairly common. So there, if you're totally full, then you're allowed to still say Berachos Hamazon. If not, then you have up until 72 minutes. After 72 minutes, if you already feel hungry, then you can no longer bench. And the same thing goes for mezainis. With drink, so we said that it's preferable you have a half hour. Once a half hour passes, and certainly if you're already thirsty, then you can no longer make a bar in the fushas. So we said, if you really to avoid all these issues, the best thing to do is to say the Allah Mechya or the Birchasama or the bar in the fushas immediately, and then you know that you're covered. So the problem is that if you're not sure, so what do you do if you're not sure? So we said you should drink more or eat more. Question is, should you make another bracha on the food that you're eating? So that's another confusing part of Hilchos Berachos, which I apologize if it's complicated. That's just the way it is. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. But it depends. If you didn't think that you were finished eating, then you don't need to make a new bracha. Meaning you're sitting in the kitchen and you're cooking, or you're somebody studying or reading, and you have a drink of water or a drink of tea next to you, and you didn't consciously finish the tea, and you didn't consciously say I'm done, then you can drink more without making a bracha. If you consciously verbalized that you're done, like for example, you're sitting and you're reading and you finished your coffee, and then you're about to leave, and you said, okay, I'm getting up and I'm coming. So then that shows that you're done eating. Then all of a sudden you say, oh, I didn't say bar nefashos, but I don't know if I'm still thirsty. Then you most certainly should make a new bracha on whatever drink that you're drinking, and then you don't have any sort of shilas, because there you verbalize it. The question is if you're just vague on it and you don't know, did I have in mind to finish? Did I not have in mind to finish? So in that case, the rule that we've been saying is Safik brachas lahakol, and therefore you should not make a new bracha. Right? So that's that's trying to clarify the confusion with that. Again, just in a nutshell, if you verbalize that you're done eating, so then you're done eating, and that's it. If you decide to drink more, even if it's of the same food that you were drinking, then you have to make a new bracha. If you haven't verbalized it, so then you do not make a new bracha if you eat more. Again, the reason why we're saying that you should eat more is because you weren't sure if you're thirsty and you have not yet made a bracha achrona. If you're thirsty, then you certainly cannot make a bracha achrona. We're talking about a case where you want to make a bracha achrona, you're not sure if you're still eligible to make a bracha achrona. So therefore, drink more, and then you know you're definitely eligible for a bracha achrona. Right? Okay, so I hope that's clear. Is drinking the same as any food requiring bar nefashos? Yes, but if it's, I'm not sure what you're asking there. If you're saying that it's not all the din and bar nefashos, drinking has a shorter lifespan than eating, even if it's a bar nefashos, because we do get thirsty more often than we do when we get hungry. So therefore, you have to be a little bit more careful. Time expires on drinking faster than it expires on food. No, so mentally deciding is a big machlokes. Whether if somebody mentally decides that they're finished eating is a big machlokes in Shulchan Aruch, whether that's considered stopping to eat and drink or not. That's why there's confusion. If you verbalize it, there's no question. Meaning, for example, I think we said this example, but just in case we didn't, you're sitting on the Shabbos table, and you say, okay, we're going to bench now, and then we're going to leave. So there, when you said that, that usually means, okay, we're done eating, and then somebody brings out more food, so then you would need to make a new bracha on that. But if you just were sitting around and then you said, oh, okay, I think we're done. I mean, you didn't say that, but you're just sitting around and seemingly you were done, then that's a machlokes whether that's considered being done or not. Yeah, so then the next question is if you're thirsty within 30 minutes, can you still make a new bracha achrona? I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you're thirsty within, can you not, a bracha achrona if you're thirsty? No, if you're thirsty within 30 minutes, you should not make, preferably not make a bracha achrona, just drink more. Just drink more. Okay, how long do you have to make other foods? The other foods is really, you have the 72 minutes. All right, for other foods, you have 72 minutes. It's drink that you have less. And drinks, you really have 72 minutes also. But if you're thirsty, you shouldn't do that. Okay, so then, so somebody's asking, what if one drinks throughout the day for health, not for thirst? So we know the rule with drinking, at least water, is that if you're drinking for thirst, then you make a bracha. If you're drinking for any other reason, then you do not make a bracha ever. Right? If you're drinking for medication, or we just had a fast day on Friday, and you're drinking before the fast day just to hydrate, you're not thirsty in the least bit, so then you would not make a bracha. You wouldn't make a bracha on that at all. So the question is, if somebody's sitting all day and he just wants to have one bracha in the morning and have it in mind, so that's fine to do, but it's not preferable if you know you're going to have stretches of longer than a half hour. It's not preferable to do that. Many people ask this a lot. I'm at work and I have my water bottle on my desk and I don't want to be busy with brachas. So can I have it in mind when I make the bracha of shahakal in the morning? And it lasts for me the whole day. The truth is it does, but it's preferable that not if you're going to be doing it if you're not going to be drinking for a half hour, the safer thing to do is to make a bar nefashos, and then a half hour later make a new bracha. That's just safer in halacha. Right. So but that's preferable. But theoretically, in halacha, if you know that you're going to be drinking, certainly if it's less than a half hour, then one bracha is fine. Then one bracha is certainly fine. You have nothing to worry about. Okay. So now let's go on to I think the subject that initially we were really supposed to start with, which is shinoi makom. Changing places. Do you need to make a new bracha? Do you not need to make a new bracha? You started your coffee in the house and then you want to continue it in the car. Or if you leave, you have food in the kitchen and you start eating in the kitchen and you decide to go to the dining room. Right? That type of thing. So do you do that or not? Right? So that's what we'll try to get through that in 15 minutes or so, or at least we'll start it. Okay, one more question here before we start that subject. So I think what you're asking is that if you make a bar nefashos on food and then you continue drinking, do you need to make a new bracha rishona? I think, meaning this is a fairly common question. For some reason, it seems like it comes up when people are chewing gum. Right, so they're chewing gum and they realize that they need to make a bar nefashos on the drink. So can they make a bar nefashos on the drink and then continue with the gum without making a new sha'akol on gum? For those that hold it, you do make a bracha on gum. Or let's say somebody was eating cake and a coffee. They finished the cake. They want to make let's say a cake and a coffee, and then they have a water bottle. So they finish the cake and the coffee. They want to make alamichim burn nefashos on the cake and the coffee. And they want to drink the water with the water bottle. So should they make a burn nefashos and then if they do, they make a new bracha on the water or not. So again, like everything else, it's a big machlokes whether you could or should do that, and whether it's get covered or not. So the best thing to do would be to wait. If you're going to change locations with that water bottle, so that's what we're up to right now. Sorry, I just want to make sure I drink enough that I know I have to make a burn nefashos, because I mean I get a chance to finish the drink, I guess. So that's practical what we're discussing. Okay, so now talking about Shina Makom, so the sugya basically goes as follows. It's one set of halachas that's based on another set of halachas. Do I have to make a new bracha? Right? So, like we said, if I change rooms, do I have to make a new bracha? Do I not have to do I go to my car? Do I have to make a new bracha or not? So these halachas are based. It's called in Hebrew in Lashon Kodesh, it's called shinui makom, changing places. The next Yom Tov Bez Hashem is Purim. This comes up a lot on Purim, not so much for women, but for Bachrim. They make a bar priya gofen in one house, and they're continuing to drink in the street, and then they go to the next house, or they washed in one house and they're continuing to the next house. Those type of shilas. Do they need new brachas? Do they not need new brachas? These brachas are called shinui makom. Now these halachas are all based on a different set of halachas, which we already learned we learned partially, which is called hesech hadas, meaning whether you have to make a new bracha is based on whether you're required to go back to your original place if you forgot to make a bracha. Meaning, again, we're just discussing shinui makom if you changed places and you needed to make a bracha. Do you need to make a new bracha when you change places? That's going to be based on the halachas. If, let's say, I ate at home, I ate a full breakfast, I washed, I had all sorts of food, and then I drive off to school. And then I realize when I get to school that I forgot to bench, which you'd be surprised how often this shaila gets asked, but it gets asked a lot. Or somebody ate a piece of cake and then went off to school and forgot to say Alam Yuchya. So whatever the answers are to those questions will answer what the din is. Do you have to make a new bracha when you move locations? So the halacha for this part is actually fairly simple. For anything that's birchas hamazon, anything that you wash for bread or Alam Yuchya, then you're required to go back to your original place. So really, if your school is a few minutes away, you're required to get back in the car and drive back home to say Birchas Hamazon or to say Alam Echya. That is the basic halacha. And let's say you can't, because you have to go teach, and your class is going to be an hour long, and by the time you get back home, it's going to be more than 72 minutes. You may not be full anymore, and now you lost the Birchas Hamazon. So when there's absolutely no choice, you say the Birchas Hamazon in school or the Alamichi in school, and there's nothing. What are you going to do? Now, what would be better in that situation is to eat more bread in school, or Alamichi, or even if you can't get bread, or at least make some sort of mezainis in school, and then you could bench in school, right? But that's not always feasible. But the halacha, again, just the halacha is very clear that for anything that requires birchas hamazon, which is bread, or cake that requires alamichya, and you forget to make the birchas hamazon or alamichya, you have to go back to the original location to make that bracha. If it's just bar and nefashos, and that includes food and or drink, then you're not required to make a bracha achrayna in the place that you left. Obviously, lechatchila you should, but if you forgot, you can make the bar nefashos wherever you are. Right? So again, it's just the basic difference between birchas hamazon and alamichya. Then you have to go back to your original place, and bar nefashos, which you don't have to go back to your original place. It's not lechatchila even for bar nefashos to leave and make it someplace else. But if you forgot, you do not have to go back. I don't even think that there's like a chumrah to go back to your original place. You don't have to go back. Now, what is the pshat in this? Why is it that you have to go back? You don't have to go back. So when you eat bread and you eat mezainis, so that's something much more substantial usually than bar nefashos. So since it's something more substantial, we look at it as if you're still basically in middle of your meal. Until you said alamichya or birchas hamazon, you're still sort of in the middle of your meal no matter where you are. So therefore, since you're in the middle of your meal, go back to your meal, and that's your place, and then you go back and make the birchas hamazon or the alamichya. But when you're drinking or eating things that only have shahakal, so nobody sits down to a meal for that. So therefore, the second you get up, it's as if, okay, you're done. And therefore, since you're done, there's no meal to go back to. The meal is over, right? You were only having bar nefashos. So once you stood up, you stood up and left the room, or left the house. That we'll get to how far you have to go. But once you're done, you're done. So therefore, there's no point in going back there. Right? Similar to what we learned before, depending on how long, what was in your mind to eat or not. But this one doesn't really depend on your mind. It's just once you've left, then the meal is over, and there's no point in going back there. For example, just to bring out some hopefully some clarity on this, is the halacha is if you leave somebody at the table, right? Then, meaning if let's say there's bar nefashos, right? And you did not. Well, maybe I'm jumping the gun using this as an example. Should I say that? Maybe I'm jumping. Yeah, I'm jumping the gun. Okay, let's forget that example. I apologize. Let's forget that example. We'll get back to that. But again, so since if you have to go back to your original place, then that's the reason for that is because you are still considered a middle of your meal. But if it's something that you don't have to go back to your original place, that's because your meal is considered over once you move. So therefore, since you're still in middle of your meal and you change locations, therefore you don't have to make a new bracha because you're still considered like you're middle of your meal. Meaning, if you are eating at home and you had a motzi, and then you decide you want to go to your friend's house and continue your meal there. When you go there to that friend's house, you do not need a new bracha. Why? Because you're considered, even though you left, you're still considered in the middle of your meal. So if you're in the middle of your meal, you don't have to make a new bracha. But if you're in the middle of drinking and then you decide to go to your friend's house, then once you get up, that's considered like your original eating has done with in that location. And now you're starting a new drinking in a different location, and therefore you need a new bracha. So that's why the two are dependent on each other. So, and that's the basic halacha, is that when you are eating bread, no matter where you go, you don't need a new bracha. So if you start your breakfast in your house, or cake, or Danish, or anything mezainis, and you start it in your house, and then you say, "Oh, I'm running late for school, or work, I better just get in the car and go." You can get in the car and go, and you do not make a new bracha on anything. If it's mezainis or hametz. If you're drinking your coffee and you're sitting at the table and you're drinking your coffee and you're relaxing, then you realize, "Oh, I'm late," and then you get up and go to your car, then yes, you have to make a new bracha. You don't make a bracha achrona because you're in the middle of eating. But you do need to make a bracha rishona because you're done with your previous meal, and now you're starting. It's on a meal. You've done your previous bracha, and now you're going to you're making a new, what we call a kviyas. You're making a new eating, therefore it requires a new bracha. I hope that's clear. Now, what about from the 7 minim? Like if you're eating dates or pomegranate and you decide to leave, do you need a new bracha? That is a big debate, whether you need a new bracha for that or not. So it suggests, like we said, I always try and get out of Savik brachas. Don't do that. That would be I know it's not the greatest answer in the world, but just don't do it. Don't see, with brachas we have the advantage that we have what we call self-control. At least we hope we have self-control. So we can say to ourselves, don't do it. Just don't do it, and then you don't have the shaila. Meaning, eat the pomegranates, and then if you decide you need to leave, so then don't take the pomegranates with you. Put them away in the refrigerator, and you'll have it later. Like this, you don't have any shaila. Right? So that's the basics. Now, what do we call so this is what I was going to say before. So, but if you left people at the table and you're going to be coming back, then that's called that you're still attached to the people that are still at the table, and therefore you don't have to make a new bracha. So let's say an example. Like I live across from a yeshiva. So if I'm in the middle of breakfast and then I have to go speak to somebody in the yeshiva, but my whole family's sitting and eating breakfast, so I run out to the yeshiva and then I come back a half hour later. I don't have to make a new bracha on anything. Even, well, if it was ala michyo or berachos mazon, and I don't make a new bracha anyways. But even if I was just eating eggs or just drinking, and I come back, I don't need a new bracha. Why? Because since they're all still sitting there, that's considered like the meal is continuing, right? So since the meal is continuing, then I'm attached to that meal, right? So therefore, like we said, it's all based on if the meal is considered like it's continuing or not. So we said for bread and cake, the meal is considered like continuing, but not for drinks. But if everybody's sitting around at the table, so then he or she is not allowed is allowed to just start drinking again, but don't have to make a new bracha, right? Okay, now the question though becomes, in that situation, let's say they all finished eating, they're just sitting around, meaning there's no food left on the table. They're just sitting because they didn't have to leave. So now the food is and there's no food left, so the meal is over. That's also a debate. That's a debate. So, but in that situation, we say, um, and certainly if they made a bracha achrayna, certainly if everybody's sitting at the table already benched, but they're still sitting at the table, and I come back, then yes, I have to make a new. Then I would have to make a new bracha, right? And this also doesn't apply if it's like a restaurant, and meaning an example of this: you're eating in a restaurant by yourself, and there's people next to you, but they don't have any connection to you, and you have to run out and feed the meter, so you don't get a ticket. So you run outside and then you come back. Do you need a new bracha? Yes. You can't say, oh, but the people in the restaurant sitting next to me are still here, so therefore I don't have to make a new bracha. That's not a cool. It has to be somebody who is eating together with you. All right. Fine. Now, what do we call? I mean, we're running out of time here, but let's just start and then we'll continue next week, Bez Hashem. And then I think we're done with brachas and we'll get to maybe some easier subjects, depending on what everybody wants. But what do you call? And this we'll start with this. What do you call changing locations? Right? What's considered a change a location? Meaning, the number one situation that comes out is you're going from one room in the house to another room in the house. Right? You're starting off in the kitchen, and then usually it's a coffee or a drink, and you're in the kitchen, and then you make a bracha shahakol, and you're drinking, and then you leave and you go to a different room in the house. So, do you have to make a new bracha? Is that called a new location? Again, we said by drinks and bar nefashos, when you leave your original location, you have to make a new bracha. Right? So do we say that applies even within your own house? So of course, that is also big machlokes. When going from room to room, is that considered, or from one floor to another floor? That's even worse. Meaning the further you get from the place that you started is more complicated. It gets more complicated. So if you leave, again, the two questions we're trying to understand is leaving from room to room, leaving from one floor to another floor. So it's a disagreement. Lamaisa, nowadays, it's normal for people to leave their rooms and to go around the houses or apartments, and it's not considered like you're giving up on your original bracha, on your original meal or original eating. So therefore, the psak is pretty clear nowadays that according to almost all poskim, when you're bringing a drink around the house, then it's not a problem, and you don't need to make a new bracha. And within an apartment building, we even say that that's okay as long as it's all under one roof. Then you're okay, right? Because that's a norm for nowadays to travel around. What about a porch? You go out to the porch. So if it's a covered porch, that's 100% fine. You don't need to make a new bracha. An uncovered porch, right? A patio or something like that, that's also a debate. And that there's plenty what to rely on with that. So you can be makel if you go up to an open porch. An open yard is already a little bit more complicated, as is with park, even though you go from one end of the park to the other end of the park, etc. So we pretty much run out of time. So I hope that was clear. If anybody has any questions, quickly please post it now. Hopefully next week we'll go through all the variables, and then I guess I'll find out if there's any more brachas questions that anybody has. So again, just to quickly review, we said that if you're not sure if you finished eating and you didn't verbalize it, if you verbalized it and you want to eat more, then you have to make a new bracha. If you didn't verbalize it, it's a machlokes. So it's in that case, if you didn't verbalize it, then push comes to shove, you're not meaning you shouldn't drink more. You should just say bar nefashos. So the problem is that if you're not sure, if you're thirsty, So then maybe you can't make a bracha. If you're thirsty, you can't make a bracha achrona anymore. So if you're not sure you're thirsty, so you should drink more. But so if you know you definitely finished your meal, then you should make a new bracha on whatever you're drinking more. If you're not sure, then just drink more without a bracha. So you could extend it and then make a bar in the fashas. And then we said that whether you have to make a bracha once you leave the room or leave the house is dependent on whether you're eating bread slash mazinus or whether you're doing bar nefashos. If you're eating bread or mazinus and you change locations, you do not have to make a new bracha because it's considered all one meal. But if it's bar nefashos, then you do have to make a new bracha. And we started going with the leniencies when you don't have to make a new bracha. So if you left somebody at the table, then you come back to the table, even though you left, you don't have to make a new bracha. Maybe we should have clarified that. Meaning when you were saying that you leave the room and come back. So I was using the example of you're taking your coffee or your water bottle from one room to the next, right? So that's also a shaila whether you need a new bracha. But another piece of it is if I'm eating my coffee in the kitchen and then I run outside because there's a delivery for a food delivery and I go outside to help out and I'm outside for 5-10 minutes. When I come back, I have to make a new bracha. I don't know if I made that clear. You have to make a new bracha, even if you're going back to your original location. That's if it was done with shahakol and anything that's bar nefashos. If it's for alamichya and benching, then you don't have to make a new bracha. Right? I probably should have clarified that before. Again, if it's alamichya then even if you leave and come back to the original place, you don't make a new bracha. Right? If it's bar nefashos, then you left the house or left the room and you come back, you do have to make a new bracha. But we said if you go from room to room in a house or under one roof or to a porch, and you come back in, then you don't have to make a new bracha. Again, we'll Bez Hashem clarify this all next week. So here we have a husband. Husband went to the bathroom during meal. Grandson and I benched. Can he still bench? Yeah, he can still bench, but because he didn't bench yet. If you make a bracha on food in the kitchen, make a bracha to taste it, you make a new bracha at supper a few minutes later. No, because that was all part of your intention when you initially ate. Okay, everybody should have a good tvach, and we should only hear Besudas Taivas, and Bez Hashem will continue next week.